Summary of the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, the true path to happiness that Buddha taught us. Hello everyone. Until now, we've been sailing together through the deep ocean of the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. Today, as our final time in this journey, let's take time to carefully organize all the teachings that Buddha gave us through this sutra. Like coming home after a long trip and looking through travel photos one by one to recall memories, please join us with a comfortable heart. The Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra is a scripture that contains the essence of the truth that Buddha realized. Though it's a vast work of 600 volumes, one single message flows through its center. It's the hopeful message that all beings can attain true happiness. Through this sutra, Buddha explained in detail why we suffer and how we can escape from that suffering. Buddha's teachings aren't complicated philosophy. They're practical wisdom that can be applied directly in daily life. Let's look together at why Siddhartha, who was a prince in India 500 years ago, left the palace to search for truth, what he realized under the Bodhi tree, and what that enlightenment means for us today. Men por Prajñāpāramitā, discovering perfect wisdom. The first key point of the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra is Prajñāpāramitā, perfect wisdom. Buddha said, this wisdom carries us from the shore of suffering to the far shore of peace. The word paramita itself means reaching the other shore. But the wisdom Buddha spoke of is different from the cleverness or knowledge we usually think of. No matter how much you know, if your mind is anxious and troubled, it's not true wisdom. True wisdom is what makes life peaceful, harmonizes relationships with others, and gives you inner strength that doesn't waver in any situation. Buddha said this wisdom isn't just for special people. Everyone already has its seeds within them, and anyone can make it bloom when the right conditions are met. Just like the moon hidden behind clouds, the wisdom in our hearts naturally reveals itself when the clouds of mental troubles clear away. So how can we develop this kind of wisdom? Buddha said to start by being awake in the present moment. Don't get caught up in the past or worry about the future and miss this present moment. Only when you're completely here and now can you see the true appearance of things. Buddha also said to observe your own mind well. When you're angry, notice, oh, I'm feeling angry right now. When you're happy, recognize, I'm experiencing joy right now. When you can look at your mental state objectively like this, you can gain freedom from being swept away by emotions. Wisdom is also the ability to think from other people's perspectives. Buddha said to understand that all beings want to be happy and don't want to suffer. When you realize it's not just you but all people, even animals who feel this way, a compassionate heart naturally arises. The 6 perfections, 6 practices for a complete life. Along with the perfection of wisdom, Buddha presented 5 other perfections. These are the 6 perfections, 6 practices for a complete life. Like the various conditions needed for a beautiful flower to bloom, when these 6 develop harmoniously, true happiness becomes possible. The first is the perfection of giving. Buddha said that true sharing brings even greater joy to the giver than to the receiver. But what's important here is not just sharing material things, but sharing your heart. A warm word, sincere concern, time spent together, all of these are forms of giving. Buddha also said that when giving, you should let go of 3 things. You should release pride in yourself as the giver, expectations toward the receiver, and attachment to what you've given. Only when you do this does giving become not an act of accumulating merit, but a practice that frees your mind. The second is the perfection of moral conduct. It's easy to think of precepts as rigid rules, but Buddha called this a choice for freedom. Being dragged around by desires isn't true freedom. Relating wisely with desires is freedom. Buddha especially emphasized consistency between words and actions. Rather than pretending to be good on the outside while thinking differently inside, it's important to genuinely cultivate a good heart. True moral conduct isn't forcing yourself to endure, but naturally cultivating your mind so that good actions flow naturally. The third is the perfection of patience. Many people understand patience as simply enduring, but Buddha said it's about wisely accepting. Patience is changing what can be changed, and accepting what can't be changed without getting angry or resentful in the process. Buddha said anger hurts yourself first. Through the metaphor that if you hold a hot coal in your hand to throw at someone else, your own hand gets burned first, he showed us how harmful anger is to ourselves. Instead, he taught us to cultivate a mind that tries to think from the other person's perspective and understand that they too have their own difficulties. The fourth is the perfection of effort. Effort means working hard, but Buddha emphasized wise effort. It's not about just working hard blindly, but steadily moving in the right direction. Buddha explained this using the metaphor of guitar strings. If they're too loose, no sound comes out. If they're too tight, the strings break. Beautiful sound comes when you maintain proper tension. Practice is the same way. It shouldn't be too loose or too rigid, but should be done steadily with a joyful heart. The fifth is the perfection of meditation. Meditation means concentration of mind, but Buddha said this isn't only needed during special meditation times. Being awake and concentrated in every moment of daily life is meditation. Buddha compared the mind to water. When wind blows and waves rise, you can't see the bottom, but when the wind stops and the water becomes calm, you can see clearly to the bottom. Our minds are the same. When they're chaotic with mental troubles and wandering thoughts, wisdom doesn't appear, but in a calm and concentrated state, you can clearly see the truth of things. The sixth is the perfection of wisdom itself. Buddha said the first 5 perfections are all completed through wisdom. Giving without wisdom can become arrogance. Moral conduct without wisdom can become rigidity. And patience without wisdom can become suppression. But when wisdom is present, all practices become free and joyful. The Bodhisattva's vow, love that goes beyond the self. In the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, Buddha explained in detail about the Bodhisattva path. A Bodhisattva is a being who doesn't pursue only their own happiness, but works for the happiness of all beings. Buddha said this kind of mindset is the real secret to true happiness. The Bodhisattva's vow to save all living beings sounds grand, but Buddha said this is a concrete mindset that can be practiced in daily life. The heart that willingly works for family, friends, and colleagues. The heart that can smile at people you meet on the street. All of these are the Bodhisattva heart. Buddha especially emphasized that compassion and wisdom must go together. Compassion without wisdom can become emotional, and wisdom without compassion can become cold. To truly help others, you must wisely understand what they really need and help them with sincere love. Buddha also spoke about the mindset when helping others. If after helping you think, I helped them this much, or expect them to be grateful or hope for repayment, it's not true compassion. Just like the right hand doesn't ask for thanks after helping the left hand, Naturally helping others is true compassion. One of the most difficult things on the Bodhisattva path is when the other person doesn't accept your help. Buddha said not to be disappointed or angry even then. Like a farmer planting seeds, you don't know when they'll sprout, but planting good seeds is meaningful in itself. Buddha also made clear that bodhisattvas don't sacrifice themselves. Treasuring yourself while also treasuring others, knowing that your happiness and others' happiness aren't separate. This is the bodhisattva's wisdom. Realizing emptiness, becoming free from attachment. The most central teaching of the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra is emptiness. Buddha said the fundamental reason we suffer is that we mistake things that have no inherent existence for having inherent existence. Like mistaking a rope for a snake and being frightened. We suffer by being attached to things that change and disappear. Buddha gave us various metaphors to explain emptiness. Clouds floating in the sky, lines drawn on water, stories and dreams, a magician's illusions. Through these he showed that all phenomena have no inherent existence. But this doesn't mean nothing exists at all. It means nothing is fixed and eternal the way we think it is. Buddha especially dealt deeply with attachment to the self. When we carefully examine what we think of as me, we can't find any fixed substance. The body constantly changes, emotions change moment by moment, and thoughts flow like passing clouds. So what is me? Buddha said that me is a phenomenon that appears temporarily when various conditions come together. Just like a rainbow appears when various conditions like sun, rain, wind, and the observer's position align. Me is also a phenomenon created when body, mind, environment, and relationships come together. When this realization comes, you experience amazing freedom. You no longer have to be trapped in the fixed framework of, I'm this kind of person. Past mistakes don't define the real you. And you realize you can make new choices at any time. Buddha also spoke about dependent origination, that everything is interconnected. Nothing exists independently, and everything exists depending on everything else. When you realize this, you can escape from the feeling of separation and experience deep connection. Buddha also explained the characteristics of someone who has realized emptiness. Such a person does their best without being attached to results, loves sincerely without trying to possess others, and responds wisely without trying to defend themselves. The teaching of impermanence, wisdom to accept change. In the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, Buddha also taught deeply about impermanence. True peace comes not just from knowing intellectually that everything changes, but from accepting it with your heart. Buddha said realizing impermanence isn't a sad thing. Rather, because things change, there is hope. Because things change, growth is possible. And because things change, you can make new beginnings. If everything were fixed, progress would be impossible and liberation would be impossible. Buddha explained using the example of seasonal changes. When spring comes, we don't regret that winter is leaving. When autumn comes, we don't grieve that summer is going. Nature naturally accepts change. We too can naturally accept the changes in life this way. Buddha especially spoke about aging, illness, and death. He said not to fear these things, but accept them as natural processes of life. Fearing death comes from being attached to life, but both life and death are just parts of the process of change. Buddha also taught about impermanence in human relationships. Where there are meetings, there are also partings. Where there is growing closer, there is also growing apart. But rather than being sad about this, be grateful for the meetings themselves and treasure the time spent together. Buddha said that someone who realizes impermanence can experience the present moment more deeply. Rather than taking things for granted with the illusion that they'll last forever, you can feel the preciousness of this very moment. Beyond the Four Noble Truths, transcending suffering and happiness. In the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, Buddha also presented a new perspective on the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths are the four truths Buddha presented in his first teaching after gaining enlightenment: suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path to cessation. But in the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, Buddha said to go beyond even this structural understanding. Trying to eliminate suffering can itself become another attachment, and the mind that pursues happiness can become a new desire. Buddha said true liberation is transcending the opposition between suffering and happiness. Cultivating equanimity that doesn't waver in any situation, where it's okay if suffering comes and okay if happiness comes, this is true freedom. This is a very deep teaching. Most people think it's natural to avoid suffering and pursue happiness. But Buddha said this very pursuit creates endless cycles. The more you try to avoid suffering, the more attached to suffering you become, and the more you pursue happiness, the further from happiness you might get. Instead, Buddha taught the wisdom of acceptance, accepting the present situation as it is. Wisely change what can be changed, but peacefully accept what can't be changed. When you do this, you can experience true peace. Wisely change, wisely change, wisely change, wisely change, and non-attaining. Escaping the greed to know. In the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, Buddha said, "There is nothing to know and nothing to attain." This doesn't mean to live ignorantly, but to escape from the greed to know and the greed to obtain. Modern society is an information society. We believe that the more we know and the more we have, the happier we'll be. But Buddha said endless pursuit actually brings anxiety and stress. You fall into a vicious cycle of always feeling lacking, comparing yourself to others, and wanting more. Buddha said true wisdom begins with knowing that you don't know. When you escape from the arrogance of thinking you can know everything, true humility and peace arrive. Buddha also said that when you don't try to obtain, you can actually experience true abundance. When you're satisfied and grateful for what you have now, the feeling that you need more disappears. Buddha made clear this doesn't mean laziness. Learning and making effort, but not being attached to results. Doing your best, but not clinging to achievements. This is the true meaning of non-knowing and non-attaining. Quote, knowing success, mindset, life without obstacles. In the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, Buddha described the Bodhisattva's mindset as mind without obstacles. He said this is possible because bodhisattvas have embodied the wisdom of non-attainment. Having no obstacles means being able to respond freely in any situation. Not getting arrogant when you succeed, not getting frustrated when you fail, not becoming proud when praised, not getting discouraged when criticized. Buddha said this state doesn't mean being numb. Rather, you feel more sensitively and experience more deeply, but you don't cling to those experiences. It's like a duck floating on water, being on the water but not getting wet. Buddha said when there are no obstacles in the mind, fear also disappears. If you think you have nothing to lose, there's no reason to fear losing anything. If you have no fixed image to maintain, there's no need to worry about losing face. In this free mental state, creativity is also better expressed. Since there's no fear of failure, you can try new things. Since you don't worry about others' opinions, you can walk your own path. Since you're not bound by existing frameworks, you can come up with innovative ideas. Buddha also said that a mind without obstacles greatly helps in interpersonal relationships. You can accept others as they are without judging them. More open communication is possible since you have no mind to defend yourself, and you can naturally accept others. Changes too. No mind to mass denote the enlightenment of all Buddhas of the 3 times truth that transcends time. In the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, Buddha said, all Buddhas of the past, present, and future attain supreme, perfect enlightenment through the perfection of wisdom. This means that all Buddhas of past, present, and future gained the highest enlightenment through the perfection of wisdom. This means the wisdom of Prajñā is not just for specific times or specific individuals, but is universal truth. Human fundamental suffering and its solution are the same across time and culture. Buddha said this also contains the meaning of transcending the concept of time. The past has already passed and the future hasn't come yet, so true reality is only the present moment. All enlightenment happens right here and now. Buddha said we're no different from past Buddhas or future Buddhas. We're the same humans, experiencing the same suffering, having the same potential. Therefore, we too can reach the same enlightenment through the same methods. This is very comforting. It's not that only I have special difficulties, and it's not that only I am especially lacking. Countless predecessors have walked this same path, and what they achieved, I can achieve too. This gives us hope. Manchis, the great power of Prajñāpāramitā, transformation of mind. In the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, Buddha praised Prajñāpāramitā as the great mantra, great bright mantra, supreme mantra, and unequaled mantra. This emphasized the amazing transformative power of the wisdom of Prajñā. The great mantra means mysterious power. It refers to problems that couldn't be solved, logically being solved through intuitive wisdom. You've probably had the experience of something you were thinking about and analyzing in complex ways, suddenly becoming clear with an aha moment. That's exactly the mysterious power of Prajñā. The great bright mantra means wisdom like light that illuminates all darkness. A being lost and wandering in the darkness of ignorance finds clear direction through the light of wisdom. Buddha said this light doesn't come from outside, but is already within our hearts. The supreme mantra means the highest wisdom with nothing above it. This wisdom is more valuable than any knowledge or skill, because while all other things may or may not be useful depending on conditions, this wisdom helps in any situation. The unequaled mantra means characteristics that are unique and incomparable. It means being so special that it can't be compared to anything else. Buddha said this wisdom is the fundamental solution to all problems. Buddha said this power manifests gradually. Starting with small changes at first, you gradually experience bigger and bigger changes. It's like a small candle starting to illuminate darkness and gradually developing into brighter and brighter light. From the true cessation of all suffering. At the end of the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, Buddha said it can eliminate all suffering. It is true and not false. He said Prajñāpāramitā can truly eliminate all suffering, and this is true without falsehood. This isn't just hopeful thinking, but a certain promise. Buddha only taught what he had directly experienced and confirmed. He gave us methods that were actually verified, not theories or speculation. Buddha said the suffering mentioned here isn't just physical suffering. It includes all forms of distress that humans can experience: mental suffering, existential suffering, relational suffering. Buddha especially said that the cessation of suffering doesn't mean removing difficult situations. Difficult situations may still exist, but it refers to a state where your mind doesn't suffer because of those situations. Buddha explained this with the lotus metaphor. A lotus grows in mud but isn't dirtied by the mud and blooms beautifully. Similarly, a wise person doesn't lose mental purity even in difficult environments. Durita mantra, gate, gate, paragate. Buddha concluded the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra by giving the mantra, gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. This means gone, gone, gone beyond, gone completely beyond, awakening. This mantra contains the process of gradual liberation. The first gate means leaving the dimension of ordinary life, not being buried only in eating, sleeping, and working, but looking for deeper meaning. The second gate means advancing to religious and spiritual dimensions, starting to pursue spiritual values beyond material values. Paragate means going beyond even the dimension of personal liberation, going beyond the stage of seeking only your own peace to thinking about other people's happiness too. Parasamgate means advancing to the ultimate dimension that completely transcends all opposition and distinction. It's the absolute realm, where there's no distinction between self and other, sentient beings and Buddha, life and death and nirvana. Bodhisvaha means the blessing, may it be so. It's the heart that wishes for all these processes to be accomplished. Buddha said this mantra isn't just a spell to recite, but represents the actual process of practice, moving to a slightly higher dimension each day, trying to be a little more awake today than yesterday. This is the practice of this mantra. Return to daily life, applying wisdom to life. Buddha said the teachings of the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra aren't only practiced in mountain caves or temples. Daily life itself is the training ground for practice, and there's true meaning when you practice this wisdom at home, at work, and in society. Even after gaining enlightenment, Buddha lived with people in the world for 45 years, spreading his teachings. This showed that true enlightenment isn't turning away from the world, but connecting more deeply with the world. Buddha said every moment of daily life is an opportunity to practice enlightenment. When eating, do so with a grateful heart. When working, do your best, but don't be attached to results. When talking with people, listen sincerely and speak with a compassionate heart. Buddha especially said difficult situations are greater opportunities for learning. When everything is going smoothly, wisdom seems unnecessary. But when difficulties strike, that's when true wisdom is truly tested. Buddha also said not to practice alone, but to find companions to journey with. When you're with good friends, practice becomes more joyful and meaningful. Encouraging and helping each other while growing together was Buddha's ideal community. Sinimur Buddha's compassionate consideration. Through the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, Buddha didn't demand perfection from us. Rather, while accepting us as we are in our imperfection, he carefully taught us ways to gradually improve. Buddha well understood that people have different capacities. Some people understand quickly, while others may take a long time. But since everyone has the seeds of enlightenment, he encouraged us not to give up. Buddha also said that making mistakes and falling during the practice process is natural. What's important is getting back up after falling. He said it's enough to try to become a little better person rather than trying to become a perfect saint. Buddha especially urged us not to fall into self-criticism. Don't torment yourself asking, "Why am I so lacking?" or "Why can't I become enlightened?" Instead, you can start fresh from this very moment. Buddha gave these teachings with infinite compassion for all beings, with a heart that doesn't want to leave even one person in suffering, with an earnest wish that everyone might enjoy true happiness. He taught the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, or message to engrave in your heart. If we were to summarize the vast teachings of the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra in one phrase, it would be freedom of mind. It's about gaining freedom that isn't shaken by external conditions. Freedom that isn't bound by the past. Freedom that doesn't worry about the future. Freedom that doesn't fluctuate based on others. Evaluations. Buddha said this freedom isn't a distant ideal. It's a concrete way of life you can practice starting from this very moment. You can start with small things and gradually experience greater and greater freedom. Making a resolution each morning when you wake up, "Today, let me be a little more awake than yesterday." When you get angry, thinking, "Wait, will this anger help me?" When helping someone, deciding, "Let me just help without expecting results." These small practices are all ways of realizing the teachings of the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. Buddha also said these teachings don't stop at individual happiness. When one person awakens, the people around them are also influenced and gradually change. Just like one candle can light many other candles, the light of wisdom also spreads. Therefore, he said to think of your own practice not as selfish but as a contribution to the world. When I become peaceful, my family becomes peaceful. When family becomes peaceful, society becomes peaceful. When society becomes peaceful, the world becomes peaceful. Detailed teaching as an eternal companion. Buddha said the teachings of the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra would become not temporary comfort, but a lifelong companion. They would approach you with different meanings when you're young, when you're older, and when you're elderly, each appropriate for that time of life. When you're a student, they'll help you wisely handle the stress of studying and exams. When you become a worker, they'll help you navigate work and relationship difficulties. When you become a parent, they'll give you wisdom to love your children without possessing them. When you're healthy, they'll help you not forget humility. When you're sick, they'll help you develop patience. When you succeed, they'll keep you from becoming arrogant. When you fail, they'll keep you from becoming discouraged. Buddha especially said these teachings would be great comfort when facing death. Someone who realizes impermanence can accept death as a natural process of life, and someone who has lived without attachment can be peaceful when it's time to leave. Buddha also said these teachings transcend culture and time. Whether East or West, ancient or modern, regardless of what religion you believe in, this is universal wisdom that can help all people. Salamars, legacy for future generations. Buddha said the teachings of the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra shouldn't stop with the present generation, but should be precious heritage passed down to future generations. The most valuable wealth parents can leave their children isn't material riches, but this kind of wisdom, Buddha said not to force when transmitting these teachings. Trying to teach by force can create resistance. Instead, when you first show yourself living according to those teachings, they naturally get passed on. Buddha also said spirit is more important than form. Understanding and practicing the core spirit is more important than memorizing every letter of the scriptures. Cultivating a compassionate and wise heart is more meaningful than precisely following ceremonies or rituals. Buddha foresaw that the future would be an even more complex and fast-paced world than now. In such a world, this wisdom of mind would be even more necessary. No matter how fast external changes are, people who don't lose inner peace will enjoy true happiness. Gratitude and blessings. At the end of the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, Buddha expressed deep gratitude and blessing toward all beings. He earnestly prayed that all beings who have the karma to hear these teachings would escape from suffering and enjoy true happiness. Buddha also expressed gratitude to all the teachers and disciples who have transmitted and preserved these teachings. He said not to forget that one person's enlightenment has been passed down through countless people's efforts. Buddha asked that each of us also become part of this tradition. Share as much as you've received. Practice as much as you've learned, and become someone who loves as much as you've realized. Finally, Buddha said all these teachings are ultimately things that must disappear. Just like abandoning the raft used to cross a river after crossing it, after gaining enlightenment, you must let go even of attachment to enlightenment. But until reaching that state, these teachings will be precious guides. They'll help you find direction when you're lost, be light in darkness, and be companions when you're lonely. Numbers, today's resolution. Finishing our long journey, we now return to daily life. But we don't return empty-handed. We return carrying in our hearts the precious wisdom Buddha gave us through the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. I pray that your daily life will be different starting today. Starting each day with a grateful heart when you wake up in the morning, meeting people with a compassionate heart, and responding wisely when difficulties arise. Don't try to be perfect. Gradual progress is enough. It's okay to make mistakes and okay to fall down. You can get back up. Buddha didn't expect perfection from us either. Remember, you're not alone. There are countless predecessors who have walked this path, and there are companions walking the same path right now. Lean on each other when things are difficult and share together when things are joyful. Above all, be compassionate to yourself. Only when you can love and forgive yourself can you truly love others. The starting point of Buddha's teachings is exactly this, self-compassion. I sincerely pray that all of you will enjoy the true happiness that Buddha wanted for us. May the wisdom of the Great Perfection of Wisdom Sutra become a lamp that illuminates your life, a resting place that gives you peace, and a teacher that helps your growth. May all beings be happy and peaceful. May all beings escape from suffering. May all beings enjoy true freedom. With these prayers, we end today's long journey. Thank you sincerely for joining us. I pray that Buddha's compassion and wisdom will always be with you.